Hello, I'm Elissa McCarter LaBorde, President and CEO of World Council of Credit Unions. This is my first ever International Credit Union Day, as our movement comes together to build financial health for a brighter tomorrow. This pandemic continues to challenge in so many ways our more than 300 million credit union members around the globe. International Credit Union Day is our chance to collectively show the world how we are responding to that challenge. By providing assistance and support to our members, by investing in technology that opens up new products and services to them. Please share your stories throughout the day on social media using hashtag ICUDay2021. We will also share them. Enjoy your celebration.
And greetings, everyone. Happy International Credit Union Day, and also happy Cooperative Month. October is the month of cooperatives. I'm so happy to have all of you join us today. We're looking for a fantastic next 60 minutes. You know, more than 10 years ago, I assembled a panel of credit union and cooperative executives on International Credit Union Day to celebrate National Co-op Month. And the business values that we all share as cooperatives. Distinguished leaders like Paul Hazen from NCBA, Pete Creer from WOCCU, Bill Cheney from CUNA, and others joined the conversation moderated by Paul Berry, a Washington, D.C. television news anchor. All of this was part of my credit union DE project, Development Educator Project. It was intended to help raise greater awareness of the cooperative principles and values. So you can imagine my excitement when Cabot Creamery Cooperative reached out to CCUA and asked, what can we do together this year to mark ICU Day? And voila, here we are with today's webinar. So our agenda today is simple. It's basically to hear what our leaders have to say about the distinct value that resides in the cooperative business model, and how we can all optimize that value and reap the full benefits that come from it. Now, joining in our conversation today are a number of cooperative and credit union experts. Among them being Amanda Freund, she's a member and spokesperson for Cabot Creamery Cooperative. Howard Brodsky, he's co-founder, chairman, and co-CEO of CCA Global Partners. There's Howard. Jim Nussle, our friend, president and CEO of CUNA. Doug O'Brien, President and CEO of the National Cooperative Business Association, CLUSA International, and my CEO, my boss, Ron McLean, President and CEO of the Cooperative Credit Union Association, headquartered here in Massachusetts. Well, we're going to start with Ron first for his comments, but before we do so, I'd like to play an excerpt from Mark Meyer, who I interviewed about a week ago. He's going to share his thoughts about what the cooperative business model means to him. And then when we come out of that, we'll go to Ron for his welcome and for some of his comments as well. So let me run over to, here we go.
Well, you know, happy International Credit Union.
Let me share the screen first. That would help.
First and foremost, it's great to be here with you. During a time of great change, a time of uncertainty, a time of crisis, one of the things that we often do is we stand firmly on our values. And I think what we have learned in the last 18 to 20 months during a global health crisis, social unrest, economic crisis, the credit union values and the credit union and the cooperative principles stand firmly as a strong foundation to move us through these times of uncertainty and dynamic change. So an example of that would be, as we think back to March of 2020, when we first started hearing about this thing called COVID, and were alerted that we were in the midst of a global health pandemic, what did those organizations that held the cooperative structure and cooperative principles near and dear do? What we've heard, what we've seen, the stories that we've unearthed, The artifacts of learning around living those principles include watching credit unions in the first weeks, in the early weeks, is engaging with the care for community immediately. They didn't wait for the government to dictate terms. They didn't wait to respond to what banks did. Credit unions immediately saw their members in need with emergency loan programs. Once the government did interact and offer PPP loans, many implemented systems to make that happen efficiently and effectively to benefit their communities and the members they serve. So what's so exciting when we look at International Credit Union Day and look at the cooperative principles, they have served us extraordinarily well during this time of crisis. Credit unions across the country, from Honolulu to Boston, have demonstrated to stand tall, stand up in their communities, and many of the credit unions and credit union members are doing well in this very dynamic time.
So Ron, let's start with you. Ron is the president and CEO of the CCUA. Ron, tell us what your feelings are about the business model in today's event.
Yeah, great, Walter, and thanks so much for your efforts to help coordinate today. Welcome, everyone. Special welcome to our panelists joining me today, Howard and Doug. Awesome that you're joining. Really a big shout out to our national leader, Jim Nussle from CUNA. Just a tremendous leader at the national level for our system. So Team CUNA does a great job. Jim, honored that you're joining us today, so thank you. To Amanda and the Cabot Creamery, you have been a tremendous partner of CCUA throughout the pandemic, not just today, but I want to give a big shout out to Cabot Creamery, what you've done for ourselves and our membership and continue to do. And I got to give a shout out to your shirt. I'm a farmer, I'm an owner, just makes a lot more personal and dynamic. And we'll hear more about you, Amanda, in a little bit. So as over my shoulder, you have my company name, our association. We're the only 4-state credit union association in the country, but I'm proud on International Credit Union Day to share my name with everyone. We are the Cooperative Credit Union Association. Below our name, you see our tagline, creating cooperative power. And to me, that has extra meaning on today. You know, we have 7 cooperative principles. One of those is cooperation among cooperatives, and we're putting that into practice today. I'm really proud to share that last week at our board meeting, we announced the 8th cooperative principle of DEI, which I know others have as well, but just thrilled to welcome the group, and I look forward to today's conversation.
Well, thanks, Ron. How about we go over to, I see Howard Brodsky to my right on my screen. Howard.
Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. And look, I think during the pandemic, we've never seen more of a need for a cooperative for our members, that we are across over 10 industries. So we have, we're the largest floor covering retailer in the world, but also we're in bike stores and ski stores and lighting stores and construction companies. And we also have 30,000 childcare centers we service. So we saw during this time, our members needed us more than ever. You know, where they say stronger together, you know, and one of the things we're proud of is we didn't lose one member during the pandemic, not one member. I mean, across North America, not one single one. It was interesting. We had one of our members told me in Canada, he wrote me a note and he said, you know, I was walking down the street and I saw the president of our Chamber of Commerce. And he said, turned to me, he said, how are you surviving the pandemic? And he said, I'll tell you how. He said, a cooperative. He said, they give me the guidance, they give me the energy, they've given me the connections to do what I did. And he said, I'm actually doing well. And he said, I'd never be doing well without a cooperative. So, you know, I think like all of us, you know, when the pandemic hit, you know, all the engines went on, what can we do for the member? Because our values are so aligned. You know, it's not somebody trying to take profit out of something and for a public company. I think the values of a cooperative have never shown more than during a pandemic. And, you know, I'm proud to be part of the cooperative world. I think it's such an amazing world with the credit unions and the purchasing and, you know, the rural electric. I mean, all the different sectors, I think have come on so strong and shown what the values are. And I think it also, I think, showed us what the greatest need is right now, because we have the inequality that has just increased enormously. And there is nothing like a cooperative to level that playing field.
That's well said. Well said, Howard. You know, Jim, you sit on the national level in terms of looking at credit unions across all 50 states and beyond. Share with us your thoughts about what makes, you know, the financial cooperative model, business model, the principles and the values that we share. What makes it so special?
Well, Walter, first of all, thank you for hosting this. This is a great DE project that you started, and I'm proud to be a development educator myself. So congratulations on that, and to Ron and the Cooperative Association. Thank you for hosting this together with Cabot Creamery. Thank you for putting this on and inviting me to be part of it. And you know, it's such a big question, and I guess I would simply boil it down to, you know, during this last year, more than ever before, people wanted to know what they could depend on and what they could trust and what they could rely on. And credit unions and cooperatives during this time, I think, have demonstrated maybe more than any other time in our history what it means to be durable, what it means to be resourceful, what it means to be resilient. From a credit union standpoint, I can tell you story after story of where credit union professionals were the first financial responders in their communities. They were the first ones to respond to a number of challenges, the pandemic just being one of the most recent examples. I can cite you everything from floods to hurricanes to wildfires as examples of where credit unions during a time like this were there. We're just there. We're there to help. We're there not to play off the misery of what people were dealing with in those particular situations, but rather being a reliable resource, a trusted resource because of our cooperative superpowers, because of our cooperative principles that we all stand upon and put forth as cooperatives. And I think that's the enduring part. I think that's what makes us different. It makes us special. It's the reason we get to celebrate International Credit Union today, where, you know, together with America's credit unions providing over $13 billion of direct financial benefits back to our credit union members across the country, but our ability to do that across the entire world, lifting people from poverty, providing access to services that they wouldn't have any other way, and providing probably the most important thing during this pandemic, and that is human connection. You know, I've got a phone, I've got a number of apps on there. I can go to my computer and jump on a website. But when you go to a cooperative, you can rely on the fact that you're dealing with a human being. And I want things to be faster. I want things to be frictionless. I want things to be easy. But I also want to know I'm dealing with a human being, because that's what all of us yearn for when we're going through challenges like this, that we can rely on another human being. And that's what cooperatives provide. So I'm proud to be a member owner myself. And proud to be part of this panel with such luminaries and people who are living the credit union and the cooperative principles every single day.
You know, Jim, thank you so much for those words. Now, maybe you and I could partner together and we could go after Ron McLean to become a DE as well. That would. I
think it's in the cards. I think we can do it.
I can't say no to either of you, so count me in. So I'm on the record of I will get that done.
You know, before we go on and hear from Doug and Amanda, I also had an opportunity to record and talk with Suzette Snow-Cobb this past week, as a matter of fact. Suzette is the sourcing coordinator for Neighboring Food Co-op Association. And interesting about Suzette, she also holds a Master of Management from the Cooperatives and Credit Unions department there at St. Mary's University in Nova Scotia. I think she's maybe like one of few, only a handful maybe of people in the United States that have that master's certificate. One of the others, as a matter of fact, was my boss back at Western Corporate Federal Credit Union. Now that'll ring a bell for some of you. But anyway, let's hear from Suzette, and then we'll come back and we'll hear from Amanda and Doug about what they think as well. So if you give me a moment, and we'll go and hear Suzette.
Well, what we hear over and over again is that, well, of course, everybody eats, everybody wants healthy food, and what we hear over and over again is the recognition that when they don't have access to that, it's disempowering. It's disempowering to not have control over getting healthy food for your family. And so when we see people able to think about how they can have that access when the grocery store in their neighborhood moved out because it wasn't making enough money, or they can work together through the co-op model and have a community asset of their store in their community that isn't going to just close and move, and also can provide jobs that are meaningful, and then also the connection to the producers. Once they start digging into it, they see, oh, there's this whole system of our food producers that we can be more in touch with through our local business.
I think that's a perfect segue to you, Amanda. We're talking about food. We're talking about what you do in terms of growing on the farm. Share with us your thoughts about what makes cooperatives so special, our business model so special.
Absolutely. And so I will say that a lot of people have felt a lot of different disruptions from the pandemic. And one thing that I've really appreciated is that my cows don't care if it's Christmas or if it's a pandemic. My responsibilities as a farmer and as a co-op member are the same every single day. And so I've certainly experienced plenty of other frustrations with living through COVID, but with respect to being the caretaker for my cows and making sure that we have high quality milk that's filling our tank to be sent out to be processed within an hour and 15 minutes of my farm, that's been the same every single day. And so I kind of identified 4 specific areas where this model is really significant to our farm business. One is the specialization, the fact that we are in charge of caring for our land and our cows, but we don't have to worry about the movement or the marketing of our product. Our cooperative, Cabot, handles that. So we can both be very efficient at what we're best suited for. Representation. Our board of directors are farmer members themselves, and each farm member, there's 700 of us in the cooperative across New York and New England, we elect those board of directors. And so we have an opportunity to select our leadership. It was mentioned earlier, the care for community being one of the 7 principles of cooperatives. And the reality is that each of our farmer members are super involved in our communities. So my brother's a volunteer firefighter, and I'm on a local foundation, and my mom serves food at the local food pantry. And our cooperative, Cabot, has then incorporated that same interest and responsibility in how we manage our company. And so whether that be through reward volunteers or supporting this initiative or doing random acts at Cheddar and going to our fire departments each fall and just feeding the people that volunteer for us and support us. And then lastly, just kind of a cool little snippet is that every drop of milk that has ever left my family's farm has been through a cooperative. My grandpa started this farm in 1949, and so the basic tenets and foundations of the cooperative are literally inherent to our farm business. We're 3 generations in to being a cooperative. And that cooperative model also applies to our financial lender with Farm Credit. through the company that we buy semen from. You didn't think that was going to come up during a lunchtime call. But Gen X is also a member-based organization. And even our dairy information systems with Dairy One. So cooperatives are literally in every component of this farm business. And obviously, I'm very proud to be wearing this shirt as often as possible.
Well, I have to say, Howard, Doug, if there isn't cooperative in her DNA, it doesn't exist anywhere. Wow. Oh, good. Doug, let's go to you. Why don't you wrap this segment up for us and tell us a little bit now. You are the president CEO of the National Cooperative Business Association. Tell us a little bit about what you do, the role that you play, and share with us why you are such an advocate for the cooperative values and principles.
Well, Walter, thanks, and thank you to CCUA for bringing this together, and it's great to be with you, Amanda, and Cabot is also a very active member of NCBA CLUSA. Always good to see you, Jim. And Howard is one of my board members. Howard, just 2 years ago, actually, Howard received an award, the Global Award for Cooperative Leadership, the Rochdale Award from the International Cooperative Alliance, and it's always a joy to be with Howard. So to your question, Howard, so NCBA CLUSA, in many ways, it is the expression of Principle 6. We are the umbrella organization for all kinds of cooperatives. So CUNA is on our board. They're very active. CCA Global with the purchasing co-ops. We have agriculture co-ops, worker co-ops, food co-ops. Essentially every sector is there with us. The rural electric co-ops are very active. And our job is to help on public awareness and to do advocacy. We do thought leadership, like we just did a big conference last week called Impact that really brings together some of the best thinkers across the sectors. And then we do development. So here in the US, we help cultivate an ecosystem of co-op development and advocate for resources. And for over 60 years, we've actually brought the cooperative principles and values into international development work. And today we're in 17 or 18 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, and Central America, helping empowering people through their business. So that's who NCBA CLUSA is. Why I'm so excited to be part of the cooperative community is because of its values, the values and principles of this business model. It truly does empower people. It gives them more control of their business. It gives them the opportunity to increase their impact across community. Amanda talked about all the wonderful work that individually folks in her family do, but then she talked about how Cabot comes together and essentially amplifies that. And because there's a co-op that's able to really lift up some of the great things and really nudge forward some of the things that need to happen in community. And I'll pause because I want to get to talk about some other things. I've got a bunch of examples on my mind too, but it is around that principle 6, that 6 principles of cooperation among cooperatives. We've been talking a good bit at NCBA CLUSA about how we're facing some really generational challenges. Howard mentioned them: inequality, systemic racism, the challenge of climate change, and just the changing nature of work. There's a role for cooperatives. There's a much bigger role that not only that we can play, but we need to play. We need to be one of the tools that our communities can rely on to meet some of these great challenges. And the only way that we will be able to do it is if we work together. We have a history, we have an ethic, but it's something we have to be really deliberate about, because I'll have to say, I'll admit that at the end of the day, folks have their list of things to do, and they kind of get their head down, and they're taking care of their members or taking care of that next task and list, and they can kind of forget that actually we're part of this big community, and that's how we make big change. So I'm so excited, Walter, that you put this together today on International Credit Union Day.
Well, thank you, Doug. I think that you really set the stage for a discussion, and I would invite all of you to please jump in on this. But when you look at what the world is facing, the role that cooperatives, that credit unions can play, I have to ask and wonder what your thoughts are on this. when you consider all of that, and then you consider, you know, what it is that kind of holds us back, holds awareness of credit unions, of cooperatives from really getting out there in the communities and from engaging the publics. You know, what does stand in our way from just blossoming if we are as, you know, good and as valuable as we really prove to be? What is impeding us, and what in your thoughts maybe are ways that we could rise above that, that we could circumvent or overcome those impediments? I would invite you, any one of you, to begin and jump in on it.
Hey, Walter, I'll kind of lead up on this one, and I think Jim Nussle might appreciate this, being we're in the same industry. But I think in many ways, our credit unions can be too humble and hesitant sometimes to tell their story. They have an amazing, incredible story to tell of how they're helping their members, businesses, communities. We saw it during the pandemic, right when the pandemic hit. In our 4 states, over $100 million in emergency loans were being offered. And some of our members said, Ron, that's kind of what we do. That's not anything special. So again, any opportunity to change that mindset and be our own cheerleader, I think will go a long way. Jim, I won't steal your thunder about open your eyes about the awareness on that end, but again, I think the mindset and history of credit unions is to be a little bit too humble, which is, you respect that, but also you want to change that a little bit too.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on that. It's a great segue. I think you're exactly right. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard people say that our business model sells itself, or what we do sells itself. And I think that's probably coming from a farm state. I was exposed to a lot of different kinds of cooperatives. I was from Iowa originally, and so I understand Amanda's how she thinks about this a little bit. And I can tell you that too many cooperatives, I think, just believe that this sells itself, and that's just not true. We have got to sell it. We've got to educate people constantly about the model. It's not sadly, I think today, different than it was 100 years ago, 50 years ago. This is not a model that is natural, is the word I'm going to use. Meaning, I think we're used to Amazon. We're used to the big banks. We're used to the big box stores. We're getting used to apps. There are kids today that have never shopped in a mall, believe it or not. I mean, it's getting to that point. And it's because they have taken for granted that things will just be provided for them and that people are just going to be in it for the money. Well, we're not in it for the money. We're in it for the people, for the service. We're in it for the mission, whatever that mission of that cooperative is. And that does not naturally sell itself. So yes, we put together an awareness initiative, a national one, and we've also been doing a lot of polling along with it. And I'll just share 2 more things about that. Our national polling and focus group about credit unions, just credit unions, financial cooperatives, said that there were 2 myths that they had about credit unions. And this may be similar to other cooperatives. The first myth was that that we're too small, that just by the fact that it's member owned and it's localized means that it's too small to deal with the needs of the modern economy or the big things that are going on in the world around us. It's factually not true, but again, we've got to sell ourselves, number one. And second is that we're too local. Meaning that because you have to join, because it's something that that you have to become part of, that there's an impediment to membership, and somehow I can't become a member. You're just too local. You're something that I can't be part of. Well, I mean, today credit unions and most cooperatives are open to all consumers. And there's a credit union for everyone. So at any rate, we need to bust down those myths. We need to tell our story, and we can't be bashful. My grandmother raised me to say, yeah, you shouldn't brag about yourself, but it ain't bragging if it's true. And I think you ought to brag because all of these things are true about credit unions, and they're true about most cooperatives as well.
Howard, what do you think?
Well, think Jim is absolutely right. You know, it's interesting. I have a very dear friend who's president of Southern New Hampshire University, which is the largest university now in the United States. They have 185,000 students. And somebody asked him, they said, what is the biggest role you play in the university? And he said, I'm the chief storyteller. And I think what Jim was saying, I think is absolutely right. You know, it's not facts that people are interested in. They're interested in stories. That's what they remember. And I look, you know, the Business Roundtable in Washington, that's 200 of the biggest companies in America, you know, about a year and a half ago, came out with a thing that said, a big statement that said, you know, we're not going to be concerned just about shareholder value, which are all public companies. We're going to be concerned about community. It's taken them 100 years to figure out they should be concerned about community. You know, by the very nature of co-ops, we're concerned about community. And I think, you know, there's so little, what I would say is from my interaction with so many people, there's just poor understanding of what a cooperative is. I think, you know, it immediately goes to thinking a food co-op, and nothing wrong with a food co-op, but they don't understand the scale and the benefit across so many sectors. You know, we had an all-employee meeting, this was many years ago, and we were talking about all the different sectors in the cooperative world, including credit unions. And I can't tell you how many people said, I didn't know the credit union is part of the cooperative. And they said, I'm doing business with Bank of America. I don't want to do business with Bank of America. I'll go over there. They went over and people want to do business. They just don't know it. They don't know it. There's not enough understanding. And what I would say the other thing is, in our colleges, there's a very poor, if you look at young people, the young people, our principles are exactly what young people want. Something that's mission orientated, something that's value orientated. You know, there's all kinds of articles, there's capitalism dead. And I always say our model is capitalism, very entrepreneurial. We have a conscience and we care. But students love the cooperative model. They just, about 5 years ago, I was a speaker at Harvard Business School. And there were two other speakers. And the students' meeting was over.
Howard, I think we're having a little connection problem, unfortunately.
Goal from that.
Okay, let's jump over, piggyback on what the comments that Howard was making.
I can, and I'll jump on. Hopefully, Howard's connection problems resolved. But it would be building just on what Howard and Jim and Ron talked about. It is a lack of awareness, and it is, you know, we're in a culture. I think Jim, you know, was talking about we're in a culture that that the co-op model doesn't seem like, you know, as Jim put it, as like the natural thing. I agree with that, but I'm gonna twist it a little bit, Jim, and say it's actually, it is the human thing, right? It's the natural thing. It's the ecosystem around us, particularly, you know, those big corporations that are part of that business roundtable that Howard talked about. You know, they're built to sell more and to make more money. Period. You know, I mean, that and the entire ecosystem around them, the laws in Delaware, the regulations that have been, you know, evolved, that Jim knows so well over years in Washington, D.C. and the state capitals, and even the entire educational, you know, pipeline, all those MBA schools, they're made, and all of it is to you know, maximize profits for outside stakeholders. And it's to such a degree that if folks haven't been exposed to the cooperative business model, they think it's marginal. Well, it's not. We know that. You know, some stats talked about that. Well over 50% of farmers are part of co-ops in agriculture. More than 80% of all dairy, you know, that milk or cheese or yogurt that you get, it went through a co-op at some point. Maybe all the way it was co-op. And 75% of the geography of the United States is served by utilities that are owned and controlled, co-ops by the rural. This is not a marginal business, but we do have to bust out of it. I think it's a real challenge, but it's an opportunity for two reasons. One, that the rising, generations, as has been said, when they do get exposed to this, they love it. They want to be part of co-ops. So there's real opportunity. And then even those, that business roundtable that we talked about, it's obvious, that they have realized that there's a marketing advantage to showing, or at least proclaiming, that you're a values-based business. Co-ops it's at our core, it's in our identity. So we have the natural advantage if we can get out there and be on the table with them.
That storytelling is so important, and that engagement, absolutely so. I want to go to Amanda now, for Amanda, on your perspective on this. And I think it's interesting for all of us, because when you think of it, all of us are associated some way with an association, trade association that's tied in with cooperatives or credit unions. Amanda is a member of one of those associations, and she's also a contributor to Cabot Creamery Co-op. And she has, obviously, as we heard earlier, pure DNA that's made up of cooperative enzymes. So Amanda, share with us your thoughts on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, 2 years ago in 2019, we celebrated our centennial as being a farmer-owned cooperative. So you would think after 102 years of promoting ourselves as a co-op that it would just be understood and evident. And to everyone's point, it's not. And it is about marketing and engagement. And when I go and do cheese tasting at grocery stores and fairs and special events, I literally, my elevator speech, every single interaction is, I am a Cabot farmer. I'm one of 700 farm families that own this brand. We are a dairy farmer-owned cooperative. Because it turns out the two most exciting facts about Cabot for the average consumer that I'm interacting with, literally in the dairy aisle of a grocery store, is one, that we're a cooperative, and two, that our cheddar cheese is lactose free. People get very excited about that. But so it just goes to show that there is value in the one-on-one engagement. We actually, I don't know if anyone has noticed over the years, but our brand has evolved. And so this is probably going to come out backwards, but the next time you look at a Cabot branded product, you'll see that the tagline over the word Cabot actually says, "From our cooperative of farm families since 1919, because we realize that that term does resonate and it's not assumed. And so we need to utilize what space we have to share that message. But I would absolutely say that the personal stories matter. The engagement, whether it be sampling out a piece of cheese in the grocery store or being here. I actually participated in a lunch and learn with a credit union in North Carolina, just being able to talk about what does that even mean to be a cooperative member, because in the credit union space, you might not quite understand the parallel as in the farming community. So, but I would say to the latter part of the question of how do we overcome it, I mean, it was mentioned earlier that there's a lot of challenges that we have ahead of us, whether it be economic disparities, racial challenges, I mean, climate, whatever it is. And I do not doubt for a moment that cooperatives are by definition a future of inclusion and diversity and equity. And if that's not a future that we all want to work towards, then what do we have? So I'm excited and optimistic about what cooperatives have to offer, but it is going to be, just beating that drum and not stopping.
Thank you, Amanda. As we're kind of a rounding third, before we get into a final question, which I want to throw out to everyone and ask them about, your thoughts of how we can enhance the way we cooperate with one another, not only within our own sector, but across sectors. I want to acknowledge and play off of a nice segue again from Amanda, Cabot Creamery Co-op, and their generosity in sending out gift cheese baskets to a number of individuals who are attending today's webinar. And I'm going to run the little winners of that drawing right now so that everyone could see it. And there we go. So while that's happening, our next question, so each one of the individuals here will receive a gift basket of cheese from Cabot Creamery. Thank you, Cabot Creamery, again, for your generosity on this. But our final question that I want to kind of tee up deals with how we go about really overcoming any of the, let's say, obstacles or looking for opportunities where we can really accelerate the ways that we collaborate with one another. Not only, let's say, credit unions among credit unions, but credit unions with other sectors. When I start thinking about opportunities that go across the gamut, where you think of being able to, let's say, flooring and engage with flooring co-ops if you're a credit union, rather than going to some other flooring store, or the food co-ops, things of that sort. I think there's a number of opportunities that we really could look forward to doing, where we kind of cooperate with one another. Also, when you think about it too, from a legislative advocacy standpoint, credit unions have a lot of members, but when it comes going before members or lawmakers, I mean, there's a grand opportunity to stretch our hands across the sectors, grab others, and do things together where we even increase our numbers for one another, where we all benefit even stronger. Because I'll tell you, when you look at all the members of cooperatives from the entire United States, we're talking, we're going to definitely have the ear of Washington and our own state capitals as well. There's no doubt about it. So I think it provides those opportunities. But let me share with you what Mark Meyer had to say when I asked him about what we can do in order to kind of enhance the way we cooperate with one another. Here's his response to that.
Well, in responding to that question, I'm thinking back to a champion of cooperation that the Filene Research Institute holds the namesake of, Edward A. Filene. I've done a lot of reading on what Filene promoted in times of uncertainty during the Great Depression. And a principle that we're all focused on, as we've learned so much over the last 18 to 20 months, is wellness. Certainly our physical wellness. We also have seen economic bifurcation play out, and financial wellness is a piece of that. Where does all that start? And I look to our credit union community, and I look to the cooperatives that are our brothers and sisters that share these values. And I say, if we want to promote wellness, let's start with the inside first. Edward A. Filene championed a living wage. He championed a living wage for those that, and the credit unions were a benefit and a part of helping workers of organizations. I think now is the time for the cooperatives, for credit unions to come together and all cooperatives to come together and be symbols in communities that to attack the economic issues that we deal with, the financial wellness issues that we deal with, stand up and stand tall to promote a living wage for all, starting with our own organizations, all credit unions, as well as all cooperatives. And I think that will start a wave of change that will raise the standard of living and the economies around the world.
I think that kind of sets the stage a little bit for when you look at what Mark has to say for one of the ways that we can really start to make a difference. Let me start with you, Doug, and we'll hear from all of you about your thoughts about how we can go about kind of being more effective at working together and exercising Principle 6.
Walter, thanks for the question. First, I want to mention, and some of you I know about an initiative that NCBA CLUSA is working on called the Principle 6 Initiative, and it really, in a way, it is answering the question that Walter asked. It's how do we optimize that principle? How do we make it even more possible for cooperatives to work together so we can solve some of these problems, so we can make real progress? And as we've talked about a couple times today, while it's the principle is core to our co-op identity, it's not necessarily a muscle that co-ops have built. So it needs to be done in a really deliberate way. That's why we have associations, you know, for instance, in a really basic fundamental reason. But we're doing some things, you know, we're gathering some great stories. Take a look at ncba.coop, and there's a place where we're gathering stories of Principle 6. You know, we're bringing together some of the leaders of some of the big cooperatives and cooperative associations for conversations. We're talking about, you know, learning tours and data, you know, and bringing together some data so people can, you know, tell these stories that we've been talking about. Let me talk about two examples really quick. One kind of micro and one big when you think about what can Principle 6 really mean. Los Alamos, New Mexico, there was a couple credit unions along with, I think, 3 or 4 other cooperatives that came together, realizing that they all wanted to make, you know, more community impact, something Cabot does such a wonderful job at doing with other cooperatives. But what they did, you know, they have a public awareness campaign about how each of them are cooperatives, and they're building that brand together. And they built a local park. There was a need in the part of the town for a local park, and the co-ops came together and they did it, you know, together, increasing their brand, really making some community impact, and you know, getting something great done. That's one example. Let's talk about a big example on policy. When they're coming back around to the pandemic, when that policy was coming out for the EIDL and the PPP, you know, we engaged with Jim Nussle, you know, with other leaders from the cooperative sectors to make sure that we stuck together as a cooperative community in making sure that all kinds of cooperatives were not only eligible, but really had access to these critical programs. And it's a great example of when we stuck together, we had every one of the co-op sectors. And at the beginning, that wasn't true. I mean, these were SBA things, not to get in the weeds. The SBA is not so friendly to co-ops. Well, they were on EIDL and PPP, and it's because we all got together and you know, advocated as one voice, like you mentioned a little bit ago, Walter.
I think that's so important, and it's good to hear, particularly between you, Doug, and Jim, you know, that collaboration and working together. And I think it's also good that kind of information is passed on to each of the members within our own sector, how we work across sectors, because a lot of times, I hate to say this, but it's like we navel gaze. We get so focused on our own sector and what we're doing, and we forget about all the other cousins in the cooperative community. And I think it's, you know, it's like we're human. It's to be reminded every now and then that, you know, we're part of a greater family and celebrate the fact of that.
Well, and I think,
Jim, go ahead.
Well, I think to your point, the best member that can be a customer of any of ours is somebody that's already belongs to a cooperative. They already believe in the principles. They're, you know, the best person to be a member of a credit union is already one of our employees of one of our businesses. You know, we touch 1 million small businesses in America. They should all be doing business with credit unions. And I think too often, I know we're very friendly with Ace Hardware, and they have, you know, 6,000 stores. And their members don't understand all the different sectors. Their employees don't understand all different sectors. And so I think it has to start internally to really the commitment to educate our own members and employees of the cooperative sector and the value of doing business with each other is critical. And I think the other part is in business schools in America, they don't talk about cooperatives. I mean, it's just not even mentioned as a business model. We need to get into the colleges to make sure, and they love it, they just don't know it. And, you know, we need more publicity. You know, I just, you know, Start.coop that Doug's familiar with is incubating new cooperatives. And they probably have got more press. One of them, Drivers Co-op, is competing with Uber in New York City. And there was a great big article in the New York Times about the cooperative, driver cooperative. That's what we need to find. We need to have people know this is a contemporary business model. This is not a model for the old. This is a model for today's society.
Thank you, Howard. Jim, your thoughts?
Yeah, a couple of two disconnected thoughts. Number one is to your question about how could we do this better. It's an observation as somebody who came into credit unions and cooperatives from the outside coming in, and I have noticed that while we are fiercely cooperative, we are also fiercely independent. And we need to learn more about Principle 6. I think what Doug just pointed out is so important. How can we set aside just a little bit of our fierce independence and find that common denominator that we can all work on together, still maintaining that special, unique DNA that is unique. So that's just one thought. Second is, I can't help, I appreciate Mark Meyer bringing that up in the beginning. We've engaged Mark and Filene in this over the last 4 years, and you can see if I can point here. Nope, this way. Nope, this way. There it is. The financial health, building financial health for a brighter tomorrow. That's what International Credit Union Day's mantra is, financial well-being for all. I just pulled this up because I wanted to get the stats right. Think of this. This is a poll that just came out from Wall Street Journal. 40%, and 40% means 40% of everybody now. So you're looking at people who may be dealing with this in your own shop, a neighborhood, family, church, whatever. 40% of US households said they faced serious financial difficulties in just the recent months, 40%. 30% reported that their situation is worse today financially than when the pandemic began. And 20% have told us through this poll, 20% of Americans have told us they have depleted all of their savings during the last year, and it's gone. So they have no cushion. They're living paycheck to paycheck. I think we can work on this together. And it does go to physical health. It does go to mental health. It does go to whether or not our communities are going to advance and whether or not our businesses just in general are going to be productive. If people are focusing on these other mental, physical, financial health issues, they can't focus on what they do best. And so that's why we have put that forward. I think telling what we do and how we solve problems is more important than anything else, because it is the mission of the many cooperatives that we all belong to. So those are my two takeaways. And I would just say, I'm looking in the mirror when I say this. I've got to be better at being fiercely cooperative more than being fiercely independent.
Beautiful. Well said, Jim. Before I go to Ron for a wrap up, let's go to Amanda. Amanda, let's hear your thoughts about this. What do we need to do to become more cooperative with one another?
So I would say that as a cooperative, Cabot has actually had this really awesome opportunity to be exposed to the value of cross-sector communication and engagement by becoming B Corp certified. So in 2012, we actually joined the B Corp community, and they are well versed in how to basically, the rising tide lifts all boats. I mean, so we do events and programming and sampling with a lot of different B Corps, because there's opportunity and value to sharing that message together. And so I think that as we work towards better engagement and understanding of cooperatives, it's defining that network and making it so that Cabot farmers understand, who their peers are in the cooperative world. So I think there's a lot to be learned from our own experience in that B Corp world, and applying that to the cooperatives, and being able to, if it just takes some cheese in the center of the table to bring everybody together to talk, then we'll provide the cheese.
You do that and we'll provide the wine. Anyway, Amanda, thank you so much for that. If you wouldn't mind, if you could go into the chat room and type in a link or something for that report, I mean, it'd be good for participants all to find, so we have a way to look forward to that. And for any of the other panelists as well, for the chat room, it's a good way to a link for your website or whatever for folks to be able to connect. Ron, how about, we have about 2 minutes left or so. If we could go to you for your thoughts on how we could do a better job cooperating with one another and some wrap up statements.
That's great, Walter. Thanks. And what I've learned in the past hour or so is we all are on the same page. We're all talking the same language. We're all on the same mission, the purpose. Amanda, when you were talking, you are so close to a credit union type person as there can be. Your shirt could say, I'm a credit union member, I'm an owner. but what you're speaking so aligned with us, I'm sure Doug and Howard as well. At the end of the day, I think all of us and our members are trying to build a better world. I tell that to our lawmakers every single day. If you're in Boston talking to a lawmaker, credit unions in Boston want to build a better Boston, Massachusetts, a better country. That's a great story to tell. And we have a great story. We will tell it. We are telling it. We can do more, certainly. But just want to thank our panelists today. For me, it's an opportunity to get to know Doug, Howard, and Amanda. Myself and Jim connect in our teams really every single day. We're incredibly strong there. And it's going to force us to kind of be top of mind that I want my members to interact with all of you. And Amanda, when you were talking, I'm thinking to myself, gosh, is there a credit union that would help get a farm a loan for a tractor or something that might help you be a better cooperative? We're on board with that. So count on CCUA to be a strong collaborative partner with our peers, and I'm excited about it.
I do like new tractors, Ron.
I didn't say free tractors, Amanda. I said new tractors, but we'll help you out. We'll find a way, and again, very excited.
Amanda, you should see the kind of discounts Ron can get for you too. Anyway, Ron, Jim, Doug, Howard, Amanda, thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time today to share your thoughts, to share and celebrate with us International Credit Union Day and National Co-op Month. We could not have done this last hour without you. Thank you so much. And thank you too to our audience, to all our attendees who joined with us to celebrate and mark today's event. Thank you again. Happy International Credit Union Day and happy National Cooperative Month. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.